We are starting recording. And let me start. I'd like to introduce everyone Professor Michal Valčo from the Department of Church History, Evangelical Lutheran Theological Faculty of Comenius University in Bratislava. And today his presentation is Transhumanism as a Techno-Gnostic challenge to theological anthropology. So, Professor, the floor is yours. We want to have some time for question in the future, but definitely right now we'll be listening to you.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Let me start off by saying a few words of acknowledgement. This presentation is made possible through the support of a grant from the John Templeton Foundation, New Horizons for Science and Religion in Central and Eastern Europe. That's the title of the grant. The opinions expressed in this presentation in my lecture are those of the author, that is, they're mine, and they do not necessarily reflect the views of the John Templeton Foundation. And with this, I want to thank the foundation for their support. It's been really helpful. So transhumanism is a social and philosophical movement that advocates for the use of technology to enhance human abilities and transcend biological limitations. It advocates for the improvement of the physical, mental, and social aspects of human life through the use of technology. While some proponents of transhumanism may see it primarily as a way to alleviate suffering and extend the human lifespan, others view it as a means to achieve post-human transcendence. At its core, transhumanism raises important questions about the nature of humanity and our relationship to technology, which have significant implications for anthropology as well as other disciplines. In this lecture, I argue that transhumanism, or more precisely, certain more extreme strands of transhumanism, can be seen as a form of Techno-Gnosticism. Drawing on the concept of Gnosticism, which posits that salvation or liberation, elevation, fulfillment comes through secret knowledge or gnosis, and that the human bodily existence is to be overcome as something inherently limiting, low, and detestable, I will explore the philosophical and theological underpinnings of transhumanism and its implications for our understanding of human nature, ethics, spirituality. By analyzing the similarities between transhumanism and Gnosticism, I aim to provide a critical perspective on the movement. The similarities between transhumanism and Gnosticism suggest that transhumanism can be seen as a modern-day manifestation of the ancient Gnostic impulse. This is significant because it reveals that transhumanism is not just a recent development, as many people believe, but rather a continuation of a long-standing human desire to transcend our physical limitations and attain a higher level of knowledge and applied understanding, which is expected to have a liberating or even redemptive effect on humankind. While transhumanism offers tantalizing possibilities for human enhancement, many of which are positive, it also carries significant risks and challenges that must be carefully considered in any attempt to pursue a transhumanist future. So I will now turn to my next section, which are the historical roots and development of the transhumanist vision, as I call it. I will then follow with a section on the current contemporary state of the art or contemporary forms of transhumanism. Very briefly, I will talk about Gnosticism And I will point out the parallels that I see, and then I will offer a few concluding remarks at the end. So the historical roots and development of the transhumanist vision. Transhumanism as a concept has deep historical roots that can be traced back to ancient civilizations even. In some ancient civilizations, such as the Greeks and the Egyptians, the idea of enhancing human capabilities was explored through various means. The Greeks, for example, had the myth of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity, symbolizing the pursuit of knowledge and power. Similarly, the Egyptians believed in the concept of Ka, a spiritual essence that could be preserved through mummification, representing the desire for immortality. Early cultures experimented with potions and spells to augment physical strength or mental abilities, foreshadowing the contemporary pursuit of biohacking and cognitive enhancement. The Renaissance period marked a significant milestone in the development of transhumanist thought, as thinkers such as Leonardo da Vinci and Francis Bacon began to explore the possibilities of technology as a means of human enhancement. Da Vinci's fascination with anatomy and mechanical devices, as evidenced by his designs of flying machine and robotic knight, exemplified the fusion of science, art, and technology. Bacon, in his work New Atlantis, envisioned a utopian society driven by scientific progress, where technology is harnessed to improve human life. Moving forward to the Enlightenment period, the emergence of scientific realism and the influence of philosophers such as Descartes, Bacon, and Newton further shaped transhumanist thought. Descartes' famous declaration, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, highlighted the centrality of human reason in understanding the world and actually managing the world, while Newton's laws of motion and universal gravitation laid the foundation for a mechanistic view of nature. The Industrial Revolution and the rise of capitalism during this time period also influenced the way humans viewed themselves and their relationship with technology, as machines began to replace manual labor and transform the economy. The 20th century marked the birth of modern transhumanism, with movements such as eugenics and futurism emerging as precursors to contemporary transhumanist thought. Eugenics, for example, sought to improve the human gene pool through selective breeding, while futurism celebrated the power of technology and its potential to transform society. Additionally, the role of science fiction in shaping transhumanist ideas cannot be understated, as authors like A.G. Wells and Aldous Huxley depicted futuristic worlds where technology had radically altered the human condition. The cybernetic revolution of the 1950s and 60s brought forth new technologies, such as computers, and then in the next decades, the internet, which significantly impacted the development of transhumanism. Cybernetics, as a field of study, aimed to understand the principles of communication and control in living organisms and machines, paving the way for a more integrated view of technology. Innovators like Norbert Wiener and Claude Shannon contributed to the development of information theory and systems theory, which underpin much of today's transhumanist discourse. Shannon's work has also influenced the study of human cognition, artificial intelligence, and neural networks, which are crucial crucial elements of transhumanist thought. So as you can see, the historical roots and development of transhumanism span millennia, we might say, even if we didn't recognize transhumanism, back 2,000 years, it was different, obviously, qualitatively different, perhaps, from the kind of transhumanism we're talking about today. But the vision, the drive, the same or similar goals were already there. And it encompassed a diverse array of cultural, philosophical, and technological influences. As we continue to push the boundaries of human potential through advancements in biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and other fields, it is essential to reflect on this complex history to better understand the motivations as well as challenges and implications of our pursuit of human enhancement. So let's move on to the next section, which is contemporary transhumanism. The term transhumanism was first coined in the mid-20th century by evolutionary biologist Julian Huxley in the 1950s. So Julian Huxley is generally regarded as the founder of transhumanism. Another one is Max More, the author of Principles of Extropy, famous book which he published in 1990. Also, he was the founder of the Extropy Institute in 1992. In 1998, philosophers Nick Bostrom and David Pearce founded the World Transhumanist Association, the so-called WTA. Which in 2008 became known as Humanity Plus. Then we have the American sociologist and bioethicist James Hughes, former executive director of WTA, and other notable names include Ray Kurzweil, Natasha Vita-More, Stephen Fuller, or a colleague from Hungary, close to us, Zoltán István, who is the famous Hungarian transhumanist, and many more, obviously. The field of transhumanism is multidisciplinary and draws on various branches of science and technology, including biology, neuroscience, engineering, computer science, and psychology. The rapid pace of technological advancement in recent years has made it possible to conceive of a future in which humans can extend their lifespan, increase their cognitive abilities, and enhance their physical capabilities. And the potential benefits of transhumanism are many and far-reaching. And they have generated a great deal of excitement and interest in the field. And I want to openly acknowledge this. Now, having said that, my approach in this lecture is of a more critical in nature, but it doesn't mean that I overlook the potential benefits of these technologies. So before we continue, let's look at some definition statements and goals that are stated by the transhumanist fathers or founders themselves, so that we don't end up just talking about them without actually letting them speak for themselves. So this is from Max More, a quote from 1990 and then 1996. He says, "Transhumanism is a class of philosophies that seek to guide us towards a post-human condition, evolutionary speaking. Transhumanism shares many elements of humanism, including a reason and science, a commitment to progress and valuing of human and transhuman existence in this life. But transhumanism differs from humanism in recognizing and anticipating the radical alterations in the nature and possibilities of our lives, resulting from various sciences and technologies." And then from the transhumanist frequent questions and answers section on their website, which was published in 2006. This is the definition that they put up online. They say the transhumanism is the intellectual and cultural movement that affirms the possibility and desirability of fundamentally improving the human condition through applied reason, especially by developing and making widely available technologies to eliminate aging and to greatly enhance human intellectual, physical, and psychological capacities. End of quote. Now, some transhumanists tend to see humanity as a mere link in the evolutionary chain of consciousness. Humanity's value thus comes from its being a source of potential to create or prepare the way for new orders of sentient beings, which takes us beyond classical transhumanism to the post-humanist vision. Through a process of human-directed evolution, humans can, according to transhumanists, they can and should enhance themselves beyond what is naturally human, including a radical extension of healthy human life, which points towards immortality. To be included among civil liberties, they propose 3 new civil liberties to ensure that individuals have the right to make decisions about their own bodies and minds, as well as their reproduction, without undue interference or coercion. And these liberties are cognitive liberty, freedom, and procreative liberty. Cognitive liberty refers to an individual's right to control their own mental processes, cognitive capabilities, and states of consciousness, including, by use of technology that enhances our intelligence, memory, attention, and so on. Morphological freedom is the right of individuals to modify, enhance, or alter their own bodies as they see fit using available technologies. And procreative liberty refers to the right of individuals to make decisions about their reproductive choices, including whether or not to have children, the timing and spacing of pregnancies, the use of reproductive technologies, and so on. But this may also include, at the more extreme spectrum, this may also include pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or even germline gene editing, which would be basically designing your own kids before they are born. And obviously, there are many currents in transhumanism. It's not a unified movement. We can speak about extropianism, immortalism, democratic transhumanism, post-genderism, singularitarianism, post-politicism. You have many of these strands and currents within transhumanism, some of which contradict themselves a bit. But I'm not going to go deeper into these things. But we can already see live examples of human enhancement in various bionic technologies and in brain intervention technologies, electronics that are implanted in the human brain to stimulate our sensory perceptions, or to help people, for example, to help people who are colorblind or who cannot hear, and so on. We can speak about exoskeletons and pharmaceuticals that are used to boost brain power or alleviate suffering and control mood of the patients. This is the so-called chemical conditioning of humans. But there are other technologies such as messenger therapeutics, targeted immunotherapies, and conjugated nanoparticles, and all of these have great potential, especially for treatments of various diseases. And then there are some examples of people who have already been enhanced, but enhanced more in a therapeutic sense. So, for example, Neil Harbison is a man who has an antenna implanted in his skull that allows him to hear colors. He's colorblind. We cannot see, but he can hear colors. Another example is Jens Naumann, I think that's how we pronounce his name, who lost his sight when he was 20, but regained it with a device called BrainPort, and we could name a few more like this. So these technologies are already out there to some extent, to some degree, and the frontier is constantly being moved and pushed forward. So let's look at the concept of Gnosticism now, and let's see if we can see some parallels between Gnosticism and Transhumanism. Gnosticism is a term used to describe a set of religious and philosophical beliefs that were prevalent in the ancient world, especially in the 1st and 2nd century, but even on 3rd, 4th centuries of the Common Era, especially in the Mediterranean region. And these Gnostic groups were characterized by a belief in the importance of secret knowledge, gnosis. That's why they're called Gnostics, gnosis. And this secret knowledge was fundamentally important for salvation. But also the idea that the material world is inherently flawed and evil. They were also known for a dualistic view of the universe, which posits the existence of a higher divine realm and a lower material realm, which has its own quasi-deities. While most Gnostic teachings suggest that the human body is merely a shell or vehicle for the true divine self, it would be inaccurate to say that Gnostics viewed themselves as machines. Rather, they believed, and there are some Gnostic groups even today, so they still believe that humans are imbued with a divine spark trapped within a physical form, and that through spiritual enlightenment and self-knowledge, and this kind of the spiritual enlightenment through gnosis, they can transcend their material existence and reunite with the divine. And we can look at many key figures, proponents of Gnosticism in the first 3 centuries of the Common Era, such as Simon Magus or Valentinus or Basilides. Marcion also is a special category of Gnostics, but he was perhaps the most dangerous for the emerging Christian communities in the 2nd century. But there is one other Gnostic. His name is Carpocrates, and unlike most of the Gnostics, Carpocrates was a Gnostic teacher who believed that the soul could be liberated from the material world through the pursuit of personal freedom and pleasure. So unlike most Gnostics who were very ascetic, they practiced asceticism. Carpocrates was the opposite. He practiced pleasure and encouraged pleasure. So it's a bit interesting. So anyway, I mentioned these 5 because they are generally known as to be most influential in their time. But there are many others, obviously. So these 5 key proponents of Gnosticism, they all shared some tenets, some beliefs, even though they differed in their mythologies and even in their practices. But what they shared in common was a belief in the importance of secret knowledge for salvation and a rejection of the material world as inherently flawed and evil. They all believed in the possibility of transcending the limitations of the human body and achieving a higher state of existence through the acquisition of sacred knowledge or the rejection of the material world. These beliefs are relevant to our topic because they illustrate the similarities between Gnosticism and Transhumanism, both of which seek to transcend the limitations of the material world through the acquisition of knowledge, and both of them seem to seek the manipulation of reality through this higher knowledge. Because of their strong conviction that the material world and our physical bodies were inconsequential or even debasing, Gnostics often adopted ascetic practices. For instance, they would embark on extended fasting, adhere to stringent diets, or completely abstain from sexual activities. Gnostics perceived bodily pleasures as distractions from higher pursuits, unless you were Carpocrates, yeah, because he was different. But most of them, they believed that these bodily pleasures are distractions from higher pursuits. And in more extreme cases, they perceived them as sinful diversions that drew people away from their ultimate purpose. So let's look a bit closer at the similarities between Gnostics and transhumanists. Transhumanism, like Gnosticism, is dedicated to freeing humankind from the limitations of biological life, creating new bodies, possibly, that will carry us into the future. But transhumanism adds a new technological claim. Computing advances are allegedly on the verge of bringing about the singularity. That is a point where artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence, but it's also a convergence point of artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, biotechnology that will, at least such is the vision, that should enable humans to transcend their biological limitations. As we can see, transhumanists, like the Gnostics, seek solutions to free humans from bodily needs, limitations, suggesting that they share a common goal of transcending the physical world. The focus on mental experience over physical, embodied experiences in both Gnosticism and transhumanism highlights a similar desire to separate consciousness from the physical body. Indeed, some transhumanists seem to think of the human being as a consciousness hosted in a body, and of the body as a machine that the will can manipulate by means of reason, the intellect, with the help of science and technology. Moreover, transhumanism can be understood in religious terms, since transcendence of the mundane, a core animating concern of religion, drives much of the transhumanist agenda as well. The Techno-Gnostic type of transhumanists foresee a future where every aspect of human interaction, including sex, can be digitally simulated. They believe that technology will render physical touch obsolete, as digital simulation will offer the same levels of pleasure and intimacy. Furthermore, transhumanists extend this reductionist perspective to music and possible other forms of art, envisioning a world where even music becomes a purely telepathic experience. A good example of such kind of thinking, and again, I'm not claiming that all transhumanists are eagerly going in this direction, but there is a strand of transhumanists that aims precisely for these kinds of goals. So one such example is the Hungarian transhumanist István Zoltán, and I'm going to quote him now. Two quotes. One about sex, digital sex, and the other one about music without music. So the first quote is here as follows: mammals use sex as a means to generate offspring, to experience pleasure, and for bonding with partners. Erogenous zones and orgasms are simply the product of chemicals firing in the brain. If scientists can replicate that feeling by firing signals from an implanted chip or a brain wave headset, then it might even be the end of sex altogether. So that's quote number one. And quote number two about music. The music concert of the future could very well be silent, dead silent, just like live music was replaced by vinyl record players, and they were replaced by Walkmans, and Walkmans were replaced by iPods, and then other music playing devices could be replaced by low-cost EEG brainwave reading headsets. No more wires, no more earphones, no more play buttons, just thoughts. And scans of those thoughts meandering about your brain. End of quote. So I think these quotes are revealing about the kind of future that some of these transhumanists envision. Now, I'm going to read to you another interesting quote. This one is from C.S. Lewis, a very famous author from the Protestant tradition. What is interesting is that what I'm going to read to you was written by Lewis in 1945 in his novel That Hideous Strength. And it is basically Lewis captured the essence of transhumanism's ultimate aspirations through a revealing conversation where one of the main characters, Professor Philostrato, shares his vision of the future. And now this is the quote. And remember, this is 1945. So I think there is a lot of prophetic insight in the author. So here is what this character in the novel, Professor Philostrator, claims. He says, a great race, further advanced than we, a pure race. They have cleaned their world, broken free, almost, from the organic. They do not need to be born and breed and die. Only their common people, their canaglia, do that. The masters, they live on. They retain their intelligence. They can keep it artificially alive after the organic body has been dispensed with. A miracle of applied biochemistry. They do not need organic food. They are almost free of nature, attached to her only by the thinnest, finest cord. End of quote. Okay, so let's move on and let's look at the philosophical underpinnings of transhumanism as Techno-Gnosticism. Now, of course, transhumanism cannot be reduced to Gnosticism. Nevertheless, the concept of Gnosticism seems to be important for understanding the philosophical and even theological underpinnings of transhumanism, which shares many of its key beliefs. To understand the source and nature of these underpinnings, we must go back in history and re-examine the triumph, univocity, and nominalism. The idea of the triumph of univocity, which is connected to Duns Scotus, and nominalism, mostly connected to William of Ockham, whose last and greatest exponent was Thomas Aquinas. This refers to a significant shift in medieval philosophy that continues to have implications for contemporary discussions of transhumanism and techno-gnosticism. Now, what do I mean by that? Metaphysical realism, championed by Thomas Aquinas, is a philosophical perspective that posits the existence of universals or abstract entities such as humanity or justice that are independent of individual instances. Aquinas argued that these universals existed in the mind of God and were reflected in the material world, grounding reality in a what he called a divine order that transcended human understanding. This worldview placed a strong emphasis on the inherent value and purpose of each individual, as well as the limits of human knowledge and the importance of humility before the divine. However, with the rise of univocity and nominalism in the late medieval period, this metaphysical realism was challenged and ultimately eclipsed. Univocity, as proposed by John Duns Scotus, is the idea that a single concept, such as being or the concept of existence, can be applied equally to both God and creatures, but without implying any similarity between them. So there is no connection necessarily. This shift in perspective reduced the emphasis on the transcendent divine order and instead opened the door for a more human-centered understanding of reality without any reference to any higher order that permeates our reality. Nominalism, advanced by William Ockham, went even further in challenging metaphysical realism. Ockham argued that universals were merely names or mental constructs rather than independent entities existing in reality. He contended that only individual objects existed and the universals were merely convenient ways of grouping similar things. This rejection of universals led to a focus on the individual and the observable, setting the stage for the development of empirical science and the eventual rise of humanism. The triumph of univocity and nominalism over metaphysical realism has significant implications for the conversation on transhumanism as Techno-Gnosticism. With the decline of the transcendent divine order and the emphasis on individualism, human beings came to be seen as the central agents of knowledge and progress rather than more passive participants in a divinely orchestrated plan. This shift laid the foundation for the development of modern science, technology, and the Enlightenment values that underpin transhumanist thought. Transhumanism, with its focus on using technology to enhance and transcend human limitations, can be seen as a natural extension of the nominalist and univocal perspectives. By embracing the idea that humans are the primary agents of their own development, transhumanists advocate for the pursuit of knowledge and technological innovation as a means to overcome the limitations imposed by nature and biology. And in this sense, transhumanism can be viewed as a form of techno-Gnosticism seeking to transcend the material world through the acquisition of knowledge and the development of advanced technologies. However, critics of transhumanism argue that this relentless pursuit of human enhancement risks losing sight of the inherent value and dignity of each individual. They contend that the triumph of univocity and nominalism has led to an overemphasis on individual agency, and which is somehow disconnected from each other and from the environment. And technological progress at the expense of a deeper understanding of the human condition and also our interconnectedness with the world around us. Furthermore, some argue that the Techno-Gnostic approach underestimates the potential social, ethical, and environmental consequences of unchecked technological development. It seems obvious that the triumph of univocity and nominalism over metaphysical realism has had a profound impact on the development of transhumanist thought. By shifting the focus from a transcendent divine order to the centrality of human agency and individualism, these philosophical perspectives have laid the groundwork for the rise of modern science, technology, and the transhumanist movement as well. However, as transhumanism continues to pursue the techno-gnostic goal of transcending human limitations through innovation, it is essential for us to remain aware of the potential risks and ethical implications of this pursuit. And I think that's why we need to engage in thoughtful, informed dialogue about the historical roots and philosophical underpinnings of transhumanism, as well as the current iterations of its goals and methods. Now, let me offer a few concluding thoughts at the end, where I will summarize and I will offer hopefully some prophetic critical insights. And I hope this will serve as a good foundation for our discussion. So on a more critical note, transhumanism emerges as humanity's audacious and utopian endeavor to attain paradise through our own ingenuity and determination. It stands as a modern-day Tower of Babel, which threatens to topple and crush its architects under the weight of coercive eugenics or the disintegration of human identity. This pursuit blurs the essence of perfection, mistaking it for attributes such as strength, intellectual prowess, vitality, and the ever elusive fountain of youth. But is this what perfection is like? Is this the essence of what it means to be perfect? In its haste to chase these lofty goals, transhumanism disregards the far-reaching social, economic, and environmental ramifications that trail in its wake. It demeans the human body, reducing it to a mere vessel or obstacle that we must liberate our minds from, echoing the tenets of Techno-Gnosticism. The transhumanist movement, or at least the extreme forms of it, they see the resurgence of the Gnostic quest to surmount the degenerate body, which is regarded with utter disdain. Champions of enhancement technology scoff at the current state of our corporeal forms, abhorring the constraints that nature has imposed upon our species. The inadequacies in height, strength, vision, hearing, longevity, and cognition are perceived as nothing more than barriers to eternal happiness and fulfillment. Much like their Gnostic predecessors, transhumanists believe that knowledge and insight hold the keys to conquering the physical realm's inherent deficiencies. At its core, transhumanism confuses the meaning of perfection, as I said, with attributes like strength, intellectual capacity, vitality, youthfulness. And it sees these limitations as roadblocks to happiness and fulfillment. This contempt for the human condition echoes the beliefs of the Gnostic tradition, which sought to overcome the deficiencies of physical through knowledge and insight. Armed with a wealth of genetic engineering, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, and neural network interfacing, humanity is poised to vanquish the fragility and inadequacy that have long plagued our condition, transmuting weakness into unparalleled strength. Through the repair, replacement, or enhancement of our biological systems, we can defy the boundaries of finitude and embrace a new multi-tiered view of humanity. Multi-tiered in the sense that some will be more enhanced than others. So we will create, this multi-tiered system of humanity. Should the fervent proponents of transhumanism have their way, a novel species of techno-sapiens will rise, heralding a brave new world. The vast majority of the population, mired in ignorance and bewilderment, will either be shepherded by the enlightened few towards a utopian existence or be left to flounder in their naivete. The crowning achievement of this Gnostic odyssey will be the capacity to transfer the human mind into machines, allowing us to overcome the body entirely and dwell in a transcendent cyber nirvana, unshackled from the chains of nature, time, and history. So, if any of these concluding thoughts that I just laid out to you should be taken seriously, you can see that transhumanism poses significant challenges to traditional human values. And what I have in mind are especially values such as human mutuality, interdependence, an acute awareness that we are interdependent with each other, solidarity, empathy. These values have been recognized as essential components of what it means to be human, but also of human flourishing and the common good. They've been considered common good by various philosophical and religious traditions up until now. However, the implications of transhumanism for these values have not been thoroughly examined. We have not thought this through. We have not thought through what will happen to humans if they, to a significant degree, if they lose empathy, solidarity, a sense of mutuality, a sense of fragility, right? Which helps us attain some of these virtues. So the emphasis on individual enhancement and the pursuit of immortality may lead to a prioritization of individual desires and aspirations over the needs and well-being of others, resulting in a lack of empathy and a disregard for the well-being of others, as well as a lack of recognition of the interconnectedness and interdependence of human beings. Therefore, we need to examine this a bit more closely. But there is another concern that I want to address, and that's this concern relates directly to our notion of happiness. What is happiness? What constitutes happiness? Now, we know that happiness only comes with wisdom and real life experience, which involves living within human limits rather than trying to desperately at times and at all costs trying to transcend these limits. The belief that using technology to transcend our limitations may somehow automatically lead to happiness, this may prove to be a dangerous illusion, and I believe it will prove to be a very dangerous illusion. Human experience suggests that wisdom involves living within limits and that virtues such as courage, fidelity, fortitude, generosity, hope, moderation, perseverance all of these are cultivated in response to the limitations of circumstance and nature. Now, what happens when you get rid of these limitations? Can we still speak of humans in the sense? Or will the human experience change to such a degree that we will no longer recognize ourselves as humans? In any case, the convergence of transhumanism and techno-Gnosticism presents both exciting possibilities and daunting challenges. As we continue to explore this frontier, it's crucial to engage in thoughtful, inclusive dialogues that balance the pursuit of progress with the preservation of our shared humanity. By doing so, we can work toward a future where technology enriches and enhances our lives without compromising the essence of what it means to be human. To navigate the complex intersection between transhumanism and techno-Gnosticism, it's crucial to engage in ongoing discussions and debates, considering the potential benefits and risks of these advancements. By fostering a critical multidisciplinary approach, we can work towards a future where technology is used responsibly and ethically to enhance and preserve our humanity rather than to compromise it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. We have now a lot to think about. We can see the applause. Now I think it might be the turn for the audience to ask questions and start some debate regarding the topics. I hope you are not afraid of the future right now and you'll be able to discuss with Professor Valčo.
Yeah.
So if someone has a question, please feel free to speak.
So my intention was not to make you afraid of the future.
Okay. I can see the Dean.
Oh.
I think the Dean was first.
No, Caroline, please. Please. You are the first.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Valčo, I really appreciated your talk. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My question for you is, and I don't know, my mind sometimes goes off into exploring an idea. It seems there could be some elements of human enhancement that we could think, oh, this is a good idea. For example, if we could find a way to move beyond the need for caffeine and still be able to work all night. This could be really helpful for like doctors, EMTs, or people in this kind of field. But then at the same time, you could also see how this could turn into like an extreme and it could be abused. I think there's a way to determine the golden middle between not using transhumanism tools and then using it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like using it in a way to benefit humanity.
Right. Thank you for the question, Caroline. Yeah, I think we need to find a middle way. I think, first of all, we need to distinguish between the therapeutic use of these technologies and the enhancement in the real sense of the word. You know, like if I can use these modern technologies to help people with disabilities to hear, to see, to be able to taste, or or to live a healthy life, then of course such a therapeutic use, if it's safe, right, either through brain implants or some wearable devices, or even using chemicals. Speaking of these new therapy medicines that are being invented. This is already being done, and this is not ethically questionable, at least not to the same degree as when you speak of enhancing somebody's intelligence or height or strength or things like that. So
Sorry
is the
to
goal to
interrupt. What
make
you
us?
said it's that
Yeah, go ahead.
It's like an interesting point, enhancing someone's intelligence. For example, a kid who has like a severe learning disability. If there was a way to help them artificially overcome this disability, would this be something that's considered therapeutic, or would this be considered in a negative way? Like it opens the door to something we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, you said the crucial word there, and the word is disability. So it's a kid with a disability, and we want to help him be healthy, right? Him or her. And so I would still say that this is in the range of therapeutics. We're helping the child to achieve a normal level of cognitive abilities and intelligence, so that he or she can live their life to the fullest. But think about what would happen if we had the technology to either use genetic modification or drugs, or a combination of drugs, gene editing, and maybe a brain implant to create humans with the IQ of 180 or 200. Now this would be a very expensive technology, definitely, and it would be only accessible to the very few who have the money, right? Who supported the research, maybe the politicians who have the power, and other people who have the money. So you would, in effect, you would create a superhuman subspecies, of these super intelligent people who would then automatically claim that now that they are super intelligent, this automatically somehow makes them fit to rule the society, right? Because they know better than you. You are just a poor normal human being who doesn't have these abilities. So that's what I meant when I talked about the multi-tiered view of humanity, where you would have the new slaves or servants, then maybe you would have the mediocre people, and then you would have these super enhanced individuals who would be the new aristocracy, intellectual aristocracy. And obviously, this would be not only within a given society, these discrepancies, but between nations as well. Some countries would have these technologies, others would not, and this would create, I think, very, very problematic situation globally. So now chances are, as we look down the road, let's say tens, even 100 years into the future, chances are, if we can invent technology that would be safe to use, that would actually enhance our capacities, chances are eventually we will do it. We will probably merge with artificial intelligence, or to keep up with the AI. So maybe this is our future. And I'm not saying that this is absolutely out of the question. Maybe not. But I'm saying that we should not be hasty. We should not think of this. First of all, we should be slow in implementing this and researching this, but very, very careful. And we should think of the consequences and how to implement it, how to make it fair, to avoid these huge social conflicts and discrepancies. And secondly, that escaped my mind because I don't have my brain implants today. So sorry about that. Maybe it'll come back.
Okay.
Now maybe the Dean.
Professor Valčo, you have shown us transhumanism from historical, technological, anthropological, and theological perspectives. Thank you very much, Michael. I have two questions for you. Are you able to say that transhumanism is a result of anthropological error? And the second question is transhumanism really an expression of modern gnosis, as some people today claim? And if so, in what exactly is this gnosis expressed? When are you agreed with them?
Yeah. 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 Well, Gnosis, I will start. Thank you for the questions. Both of them are very good, very important.
Yeah, because you are a theologian,
Yeah.
anthropological theologian, and this, therefore, I would like to know what is your meaning about it.
Yeah. So Gnosis is knowledge, and it's not just any kind of knowledge. It's this higher knowledge, right? And there are, as I said, transhumanism is a very diverse movement.
Mm.
So what we have Christian Transhumanist Association, for example, right?
Mm.
Christian Transhumanist Association, where Christians and Christian theologians, some, participate in this movement, and they say that if we can maintain certain values, if we can maintain certain boundaries, then this movement and these scientific endeavors and these technologies, we can talk about them, and we can look forward to a world where more and more of these technologies will be implemented, as long as we can keep the traditional values at the same time. So as long as we can keep, for example, the emphasis on the dignity of every human being, and his or her inalienable rights and values and so on. So when we speak about transhumanism, we have to be careful not to try to make it too shallow and to present it as if all transhumanists were these crazy Gnostics who try to escape from our reality, and they wish to upload their minds into a computer and become a digital self. Some of them do, but not all of them. So I will start answering your second question with this affidavit, with this kind of explaining that not all transhumanists will aim for the same goals necessarily. So with my lecture today, I wanted to be a bit provocative. I wanted to take the more extreme strand of transhumanism, and I wanted to show you that with some of these people, like I quoted Istvan Zoltán, who believes that perhaps, if I have enough gadgets and enough, impulses that are created electronically and that are somehow transmitting certain waves or certain signals to my brain, I don't need physical touch. I don't need to hear real music. I don't need to have sex. I don't need intimacy, right? Because this can be substituted digitally. And since my body ages, and okay, now maybe I am able to have sex, but maybe in 10 years down the road, I won't be able to have it because my body won't respond. Then I can still use this technology to continue having these experiences. So that's one way of looking at it. But the other way of looking at it is like this body is just a burden. It's burden. It's full of limitations. It can be easily corrupted. It can be easily damaged. It can catch diseases and so on. So what we need to do, we need to find technologies where we can abstract ourselves, that is, our minds somehow, and detach them from the body so that we are no longer dependent on these bodies if they remain fragile as they are now. Now, if we can transform our bodies by genetic engineering or by some other forms of enhancements that they no longer decay and die, then maybe we could still keep our bodies, but we could as well live in virtual realities. Now, this wish to abstract ourselves from this decaying body to live in a virtual reality, isn't this a form of techno-Gnosticism? I believe it might be. I believe I would call it as Techno-Gnosticism, where I see my future liberated from the confines of this physical world. And I see my future in the virtual realm, right? In the digital realm. So I think you can find these traits. So not all transhumanists are Gnostics necessarily, right? That's not what I want to say. But I see some tendencies within the movement,
Yep.
the more extravagant,
Okay.
strands.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and then, you know, with regard to your first question, as a Christian theologian, I would say maybe we don't need to become transhuman. Maybe we just need to become human finally. And, you know, because the true human, I mean, the first human, true human was Adam. And then, okay, we didn't have any humans really, very corrupted versions of them. And then we had Jesus of Nazareth, who embodied humanity fully the way the Creator had intended it to be, right? So instead of trying to become transhuman, why not become fully human like Jesus was by being joined with Him and being governed by the divine love instead of some kind of blind chase after you know, technical enhancements and other forms that we dream that perhaps they will make us happy, they will make us more human, more alive, better. But again, you know, I go back to what I said. What does it mean to be perfect, or what does it mean to be a perfect human being? And I would say that being fragile, but at the same time being sensitive, being open to the other, being able to embrace the other, care for the other, being able to communicate with trust myself to the other and receive with trust the communication of the other to me, this kind of relational reciprocity. I mean, isn't this what makes us human? Much more than how fast I can go or how clever I am or, you know, whatever other abilities I have. So I want to call into question our anthropology, yes, because I think we have lost sight of what it means to be human and what makes us happy ultimately. And then we aim for the wrong goals, supposing that this will make us happy. So, you know, I'm not against technology. If we use it carefully, if we use it slowly, if we think through the consequences, let's slowly move. You know, let's use this, especially for therapeutic purposes, but also perhaps slowly enhancing some abilities. It can help, maybe, but let's not do it with this kind of blind faith that you know, if I am stronger and I live longer, then I'll be happy, because it's not true. It's not how it is.
To you, Professor.
Tell me, am I to understand that you do not see transhumanism as a threat to our freedom?
Yes, potentially I see it as a threat to our freedom. What I was referring to was the Christian strand of transhumanism, where these Christian theologians, for example, Ted Peters, he's a very famous theologian from the United States. He has a wonderful website, a lot of resources, and I think he speaks very objectively about transhumanism, also from a Christian perspective. And he does not automatically disregard it. He does not automatically reject it, right? But he tries to understand. Okay, now being human also means being creative. God made us in His image, Imago Dei, right? So we are relational beings, first of all. We are sentient beings, yes, but we're also creative beings. And He gave us a purpose. He gave us a task, speaking now theologically. He gave us a task to take care of God's creation and to make it more beautiful and to defend, to protect it from decay, right? Now, that's a huge task, to defend it, to make it more beautiful. That's not easy. So, of course, we use science and technology to do it, right? So I think these advancements in science and technology should not automatically be considered as a mere threat and nothing else. We should see the potential, but the potential for good as well as the potential for bad. And we need to speak openly about this. So I am actually against some more fundamentalist or more conservative Christian theological groups, or even philosophical ethicists who might object to these kind of technologies completely, and who would reject them as a mere threat. Of course, there is this potential for unintended consequences, right, of some of these technologies. We don't know what some of these consequences will be long term. And that's why we need to be careful. We need to have some oversight mechanisms. We need to go slowly. We need to think long term. We need to do many experiments in the lab before we go out into the open and so on. But on the other hand, I don't think you can stop scientific developments, scientific research with these technologies, saying that, oh, but this is too far. This is too far. Well, it's questionable. It's debatable. So I would be very careful, for sure. But I would be hesitant to say that gene technologies, genetic engineering, is automatically too far. Well, what if it's used for therapeutic purposes, as we talked about before? Of course, this is the DNA. The DNA is the code of life, right? So it's very precious. It's very sensitive. But we have the technology to switch off certain genetic sequences that cause horrible diseases. So should we implement this technology to eradicate this disease? You know, I think it's not so clear cut. And I would say that when it comes to therapeutic use, I would say that we should be a bit more open. But I would be more cautious when it comes to enhancing healthy individuals to be stronger. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have more questions? We've planned this meeting for 1.5 hours, so I think it's possible to have more questions. If no, then I have, and as the one who has the microphone. So my short question, and then Professor Paweł Deńczak. My short question is the term Techno-Gnosticism. Professor, did you invent it yourself, or it is borrowed from someone?
No, I've seen it in the literature. It's not my term, but several other people use it. But I felt like it's a fitting term because it's not this kind of spiritual Gnosticism, which is the original version. That Gnosticism was without technology. It was all on. It was based on secret teachings, but also rituals. They were very ritualistic, actually. And then also certain patterns of behavior. I said that most of these groups were actually very ascetic. Yeah, they practiced asceticism. So yeah, and they believed that this was the way to fight against the urges of the lower self, of the body, of the physical body. To overcome the bodily impulses, you need to mortify your body, right? So you can see this also among some monks and monastic orders, the same idea, but the goal was different. There was a different goal, so it's not the same. Asceticism in Gnosticism is not the same. Has not the same flavor and definitely not the same goals as the one we see in Christian monasticism. So Techno-Gnosticism, I like the term. I think it's fitting.
Yes, I agree that is very well fitting. Professor Paweł Dańczak.
Thank you, Michael, for your speech and for explanation of relationship between new technologies and Gnosticism. But we can see in history that Gnosticism usually lead us to totalitarianism. And my fear is that if transhumanism is influenced by Gnosticism, we will end up with another totalitarian system. And second note is that our situation when we are speaking about artificial intelligence and technology, new technologies, and so, isn't this similar to the situation with nuclear weapons? We have the technology, but we cannot use it. If you want, yeah, thanks.
Okay, I would appreciate if you could comment more on the first comment that you said, or the first question, because I sense that there is something deeper there, and you haven't quite told us what it is. But with respect to your second question, but we are using nuclear technology. We are using it in nuclear power plants, right? So I know what you mean. You know, we don't use the weapons, right? But we use the technology. And perhaps we can also talk in a similar way about artificial intelligence too. Let's find good civil purposes. Let's put artificial intelligence into our service, into the service of humanity, so we can do things better.
Yeah.
Right?
But
instead, yeah.
Distinguere bene docet. Also, we use this differentiation between good and not very good, bad way to use new technologies. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, can be like as it happened to Gnosticism. The church made some agreements, made some decisions that removed Gnosticism from Christianity. So maybe this is the way to push the metaphor further. This might be the way to go through it. I have another question actually, and it is the question about like the main arguments for pursuing for Techno-Gnosticism, because well, I believe there must be some reason behind deciding for this kind of future. I know some of the humanists believe there is like even moral obligation to do the enhancement of humanity for many reasons. We could be the better, the techno-human or post-human would be a better option, let's say for environment or even for the flourishing of intelligent, of Earth originated intelligent life. So what's in your opinion the main argument for pushing to Techno-Gnosticism, for the Techno-Gnostics, of course?
Yeah, if you believe that humans are a mere link in the evolution of sentient consciousness, and so humanity has played its role and is playing its role by being creative and developing these new technologies, but it needs to be humble in the sense that, okay, we have played our role, but now with these new technologies we can create perhaps a general artificial intelligence, right, that can one day even replace us. Maybe we should, I mean, if I understand post-humanism well, then they would simply claim, you know, we have evolved, we have maybe replaced some other species or subspecies like the Neanderthals and, you know, some other humanoids who were not as advanced as we are, and you know, we should be grateful for the time being that was given to us, but if this higher intelligence comes, we should not stop the evolution of consciousness, the evolution of intelligence, but we should celebrate it, celebrate the coming of a higher form of intelligence, or several higher forms of intelligence, and we should simply I don't want to say vacate the planet for them, but we should celebrate the coming of these, of this kind of intelligence, because that's the way forward. The true God is not for these people. If we speak about the divine, then it's really this evolution. This is deified. So evolution is the highest goal, and you should not obstruct evolution. This is how they would argue, right?
Okay.
Even if you induce this evolution by your technology. So speaking of general artificial intelligence or even super intelligence, down the road, I don't know, 1,000 years, I don't know how long that will take. But if we can do it, they will say that there is an ethical prerogative that we have to do it if we can, and if it's in line with this evolutionary process, then we should do it, because we are the servants of the evolution. We are not the pinnacle of the evolution, and we don't have to be here forever. If it's better for a future ecosystem that we should be ultimately replaced by other forms of evolution, of sentience, of sentient consciousness, then so be it. If it helps the overall ecosystem and the balance of life, then perhaps that's a better way, better solution, right? So I'm not advocating for this, but I'm just trying to explain this idea of post-humanism, which tries to dethrone the human as the the pinnacle of evolution, and tries to see humanity as just one link in the long chain.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can have one final question, I guess, to fit in the time that is planned. Or it doesn't seem we have one. So, Professor, I think in the name of the faculty, I'd like to thank you very much for your interesting presentation and the discussion. And also the Dean would like to say something, so please feel free.
We are very pleased that you are among us in Krakow at the Pope John Paul University. We wish a good time at our university and effective research in our library. Have a good time among us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Dean. You have been very, very helpful in arranging my stay, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for our friendship and this opportunity. I'm here with my wife, who is also my colleague at the university, and we will use our time wisely. And I know we will enjoy Krakow very much. We love the city, by the way, the culture of the city, and